Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. It does feel really good to say that, you know guys. It's been a while, and I know it's been like 3 weeks. It's been a long while. That's because I've had college and the weather's been absolutely awful, guys. I couldn't get out at all to record a video. Too windy, massive amounts of rain, so it's been absolutely horrible. But we're here now, and that's all that matters. So what are we doing today? This isn't actually the average Abarth video that we would have on this channel. It's going to differ from the rest of them because it's not a drive, it's not a review, it's more of a guide. I kind of want to talk you over how to buy one of these cars and what to look for. Well, yeah, looking over one mainly, and what you should point out when going to look for one and buying one. So yeah, today's video is going to be going over my car as an example to look for points and things that you should consider when buying an Abarth, because obviously, like every car you ever go to buy, you want to look over things to make sure it's perfect for when you hand over the money. So for this car in particular, I'm going to go through the things that you should look for the most, and yeah, without any further ado, let's not waste any time and let's get into it. So pretty much, we're going to split it into two parts. We're going to do the exterior first and then the interior. So it's just easier for me to explain to you guys and easier for you to watch. So let's start with the exterior. Now, of course, you want good paint, really, when you want to buy a car. You want paint that hasn't had really bad scratches on it or tons of like dry spots, or you just want paint that's been looked after well, polished and waxed. Now luckily with my car, it was kind of at a neutral stage. Nothing had really been done to it and the paint was kind of nice anyway, so me and my dad have like gone over that and made it 10 times better with like 6 stages of coating of wax and polishing. So it's kind of at a point where it's just really sparkly and nice. And if you guys aren't bothered by that, then by all means you don't have to be bothered about nice paint, but for me and my dad, it's a really important thing. So apart from paint, we'll start with the front of the car. Now obviously you want to make sure that there's no scratches on the plastic part of the bumper. You want to make sure the headlights are all nice and usable. And by that I mean they make sure they work, especially these two lights here. You want to make sure the fog light's working and the daytime running lights, and of course the main headlights themselves. So when you go to check one over, just flash the beams a couple times or turn it on and make sure all 6 are working. Fun fact actually, there's actually 6 lights on the front because there's 6 eyes on a scorpion. I found that pretty awesome, didn't know that myself, so there you go, fun fact of the day. Obviously with the plate, just make sure it's not a clone plate or anything. Make sure the car's not stolen, especially from a backstreet garage or something like that. Just make sure the car's legal. Moving down, just make sure the lettering's nice and there, just make sure it's present and in a good condition, because if you want to do the tyre lettering, not tyre lettering, sorry, if you want to do the lettering with the tyre pen, just make sure the letters are good enough to do it over with. I think that's the front mainly. I don't think there's anything else to go over. Just make sure the condition of it itself is all nice and good. Bonnet, same thing, just make sure it's in a nice condition. And moving to the side here, again, same with the front, just make sure the whole side of the car is nice and clean, no scratches, no dents, nothing like that. What I would recommend you guys doing is to make sure to go for a car that isn't Cat N or Cat S. Sometimes it's a really good idea to do so because you can get a really cheap and good deal, but for me personally, I like to go for a car with a clean record, because then it's not got anything dodgy done to it. You can then rely on the fact that you won't have to do anything in the future for something that's happened in the past. So I would recommend that heavily. Stripes, I suppose if you're looking for a car with stripes, then do so. There are a lot of nicer Abarths out there with stripes, but in the mod video I've done previously on this channel, you can see that this is a modification I've done to mine, as mine didn't come with stripes in the first place. So if you want to watch that video and see how I did it and how I got them, just visit the list on the channel and find that video and give it a watch. That would be heavily appreciated. So yeah, stripe, that's on its own. Side skirts, that is a big if for one of these cars. If we just open up here, you might be able to see the dirt, guys. Sorry, I drove up here, it's been raining and it's been horrible. I've tried my best, but the weather's been horrible, so what can you do? So with the side skirts on these cars, I think it's very important to check them, because a lot of these cars will be lady owned, meaning that a lot of them wear high heels and carry bags about, which sometimes leaves scratches on the side skirts and the side seals. So if you do go to see one, just check them over, make sure there's not heavy scratches on it. I failed to check them when I bought it and then realised later on, so I did get a couple heel scratches on the side skirts, but nothing that T-Cut can't sort. So just grab a bottle of that, polish it off, and you'll be fine. So that's not a massive like hinder to buying the car, so you can easily sort that. And yeah, just make sure that they're in nice condition, no scratches or anything like that, because obviously you want a nice side skirt, you want a nice polished up and clean side skirt to step into, because who doesn't? I mean I love looking at this, and it makes it even better than it's in such good condition. So why not make yours in that same state as well? Moving on, I think we'll do the interior next. So if I just close that here, arches, they're the same as the side of the car itself. Just make sure everything is all nice and clean. You don't want any scratches or dents ruining this beautiful line of the side, because as you can see, the side of this car is an absolute wonder. It is such a lovely looking hatch, or hot hatch I should say, because it is really. So you want to make sure the whole side of the car is lovely and all up to shape. Now moving on to the rear, just a couple things to look for. You just, same again with all sides of the car, paint and overall condition, make sure it's nice and gleaming, but just make sure there's no scratches on here, stuff like that. Make sure the windscreen wiper works. I think that's a pretty big, obvious thing. Just make sure there's nothing bad going on, make sure the vents are intact and stuff like that. Same with the front lights, make sure the back lights are working, the indicators as well, but I think that's pretty obvious. Moving down here, just make sure the honeycomb mesh is intact. Make sure the little strip on the diffuser back here is nice and clean. And obviously, as you can see, my exhaust isn't stock, so I can't tell you or show you physically what to do for the exhaust. But when you go to see one, just make sure the inner pipe is nice and clean and it has nothing on it. Another thing about them as well, especially on the stock exhaust, you might just want to have a quick look under the car and look at the back box, because my stock exhaust had quite a rusty shell to it. I don't believe this will affect the car at all, because it is just the outer shell, but sometimes it's just nice to have a nice good condition back box, especially if you're keeping the car for a long while. Mine also had water in it as well, which was very peculiar. You could hear it sloshing about sometimes, so that was very strange. So check for water in the back box, I guess. But yeah, that's the exhaust. You might think I'm going very quick over this, guys, but I just want to do a quick general overview on the main parts of the car before we get to the interior as well. So we're gonna move on to this side actually, because I think it's a bit easier. So moving down to the wheels. Now obviously wheels are a big part of the car, they're the main thing it sits on, so why not have them in a great condition? So especially with these wheels, just make sure these inner bits here are all nice and clean. Sadly, I think my wheels were refurbed, they weren't done very well, but they were done well enough to make it look like that there's nothing there. There is a couple little scuffs there, but I don't mind it. It doesn't affect the overall appearance of the wheels, so that's fine. But yeah, just like any other wheel on any other car, check it to make sure for scratches, dents, scuffs, curbing, because you don't want to buy a car with curbing on the wheels, because it just upsets you when you look at it. So just make sure that the general condition of that is good. Now, if you are buying a car with a damaged wheel, just make sure it's repairable. You want to make sure you can buy a wheel that you can do yourself and get it back up to shape. So if you're buying especially a hot hatch or a performance car, you want to make sure that anything on the car really is to a good enough standard, or to a make sure that you can do it yourself and bring it back up to its former glory, because obviously you don't want to be dealing with scuffed wheels, dented bodywork, because it just takes the enjoyment out of the buying process and the ownership. So yeah, just make sure that it's all good and nice. Tyres are a big check as well. Make sure there's enough tread on them, 1.6 millimeters I believe it is legal tread depth, so just make sure that's all good. Though to be honest, if you are buying it from a dealership, like especially an official dealership, I would imagine that they would do that for you anyway, but just check it, because they might miss it and you might have to bring it up yourself. So yeah, I think that is the overall, like, outside of the car all checked, because for me it's very easy. I bought a car from an official dealership and it was all done and sorted for me, so I was able to have a nice tidy car from the get-go. So let's move on into the interior and check what you need to go over when you buy one. Right, here we are in the interior. So there's a couple of things to check, really, more spec-wise than anything, but of course there is some things that you need to check regardless. So the wheel's in a funny position here because I posed it for the thumbnail, so that's why that is. But on the wheel, just check again for scuffs or marks. Just make sure it's in a nice condition. You know, you just want to have a nice, tidy looking car, especially if you're driving it for a long while. You wouldn't just look at a nice, clean interior. It's the nicest thing about the car. So, especially on this dashboard, just check for nail scratches or handbags or any of the things that might damage the dashboard, because there is a couple, you probably can't see that, or you might be able to, there is a couple scratches in the dash here, which I have tried to get out, but I can't, so that's a bit annoying, but it is what it is. So, and also just check it on the screen as well, up here on the buttons and on the turbo gauge as well. Not that people are going to be touching the turbo gauge, but, you know, just check it anyway. So same on this dashboard piece here and the main digital dash as well. I think that kind of goes for a lot of the interior as well, because a lot of it is the same material, so it can get scratched. So just check for things like that, because you might be able to buff it out with some T-cut and stuff like that, so it might be all good. I don't think there's much. Oh yeah, the seats, make sure the bolsters are all good. One good thing about these cars actually is that a lot of them comes with these particular seats, and the bolsters are very good, so they last a very long while. So you're all good in that regard, but just check them anyway. Make sure the bolsters are all good and strong, because obviously you want to sit in a car with nice seats and not crumpled bolsters, because that is the worst sight in the world. Especially on Type Rs. It seems the newer Type Rs have very bad bolsters. I don't know why that is. Like, whenever you go to look at one, especially like an 18 plate, the FK8 series, they have really, really worn out bolsters, and it's just not a good feeling. Especially when you're spending 30 grand, it kind of makes you like, yeah, if. So that's a big thing to check on the interior of the car. One of the main things really is to check the bolsters of the seats. But yeah, I think mainly a lot of it, as I said, is just checking for scratches and dents. Obviously, make sure stuff is there, because a lot of people do tend to modify cars, so they might take out the screen, they might change the gear shifter or the wheel or some parts of it. So just check for things like that. You know, if you're not happy with what the person's done, make sure it's reversible and that you can do it yourself, because then you might be able to change it back to how it was before. So that might be all right. Especially with stuff, like I said, the screen and that, because this comes with a 4-inch screen, you might want to just change it for a 7 or for one of those funky Apple CarPlay ones. So just change it back if you want to, but if you're happy with what they've done themselves, then, you know, just leave it. It might be better than what it was before. So I think, yeah, that is it mainly. Door cards and stuff like that, especially if you get the leather door cards, just check the leather is all nice and in good condition, because it might not be. It might have crumples in it or stuff like that. But with these normal stock door cards, I think they're all right. They're a bit scratch prone, you know, a bit, you know, itchy and scratchy, but they're all right mainly. Just make sure they're in good condition. The plastic on the door card as well, same case for that. The vents and all that stuff. And yeah, I think that is pretty much it for the interior. Obviously back here it's not stock, it's got a cage in it and everything, but just check the back of the seats and make sure the condition is all nice and good, because you don't want scratch back seats. It's not a very nice feeling and not a very nice sight. So just check for that mainly. And yeah, I think that is the interior all covered, because there's not much to go through. The other tips I would give you as well is just to check the glove box and make sure the digital dash is working, make sure there's no lights flogging up, because some people tend to try and get the funky noise from the turbo, so they might detach some lines and it might flag up a warning on the dashboard itself. So just check for that. And yeah, I think that's all good, guys. So I think that will cover it. I think that'll be the end. But a couple of tips I just want to give you is, if you are going to buy an Abarth, I would recommend a 16 plate one, especially on a facelift, because I think the facelift looks gorgeous and I think it looks very aggressive. One of the best looking shapes for the Abarth. If you do want to go for the pre-facelift though, absolutely go for it. I would not hesitate to go for a pre-facelift, but obviously I went for a facelift because it was there and I wanted it. But yeah, just check those things over, especially wheels, wing, lights, engine, especially the engine bay. I got very lucky with my engine bay. It's so clean and tidy. There's not a mark on it. All I had to do was just literally spray something on, wipe it off, and all good. Just wipe the dust off and we're all cool and good. So yeah, especially 16 plate Abarths, go for them. Absolutely, I'd recommend them to anyone who wants to buy an Abarth, because you can either buy like a facelift, like regular T-Jet, which could just be like a blank canvas if you want to mod it, you know, just get the stockers wheels, the stockers paint and all that stuff. Or you could buy a higher spec comp, or competizione if you want to call it that, and you know, you can do some bits and bobs to that. But personally, I would recommend leaving alone the higher spec comps, because really they've got all the stuff you want to them anyway, so you might as well just leave them as is, because they look beautiful. And I'm planning to get one next actually, so maybe future update, future video, you never know. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's video. It was just a quick one, you know, just going over some little bits and bobs that may need looking at when you go to buy one. I might release another video in the future going over it in a bit more detail, you know, a bit more of an in-depth buyer's guide. This was just a simple one really, going over the main things you should look for. I was going to do the engine, but I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Just look at the main internal parts and the components, make sure they're all good and running. Check the MOT history as well. That is one thing I forgot to mention. Check the car's MOT history, make sure everything's good, no fails, or just small advisories that you could maybe do yourself or don't affect the car. And just make sure it has a nice clean history, and make sure it has the service book to check for those as well, because you obviously want a nice clean car with no dodgy history. So yeah, as I said, it was just a simple overview today. I do hope you guys enjoy this video, and I just wanted it to be informative really, to tell you what to look for on the car, because you know, you want to buy a nice Abarth with a nice history and a nice condition. So I hope you guys took something away from this video today, and hopefully I've tempted you to get a nice Abarth yourself. I would recommend it. I love these cars. Now, I'm not sure what I'm doing for the next video. It might be a special video, or I might just do the next POV drive. There was a recommendation from a comment saying that to remove the music, because I actually watched the video myself and the music was a little too loud, so I apologise for that, guys. I took away the best part of the video, the loud, mad sound of the Abarth, so I apologise for that, and I'll release a new one soon with a better driving roads, a bit more action, and a lot less music with a bit more exhaust sound. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Don't forget to click that like button, the bell, the subscribe, all that nice business, and yeah, I'll see you in the future. Have a good one.